And welcome back to the hottest marriage show in the galaxy. It is I, John D. and
Kanika,
a.k.a. And Too Much Podcast. Good morning, my love.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm fine. You?
Stupendous.
Okay. Well, that's cool.
What's on your brain?
You know, this and that. What about you first?
Nothing in particular, but I do want to say thank you all for those of you that's been tuning in. I'm getting a lot of positive feedback from you guys, and it does make us feel really good, like we're on similar paths to happiness within our relationship. So keep sending any feedback, negative, positive. It doesn't matter because it's truth in everything. And we are always trying to find ways to get better. So shout out to you guys.
Yeah. Well, yes. Shout out to you all. We were talking about roles a number of times throughout the thing, but one of the things that came to mind the last couple of weeks is we've been making some decisions about the household, and then we've been consulting the kids. And I know in my head, the way I see a family is kind of like the husband is like the CEO with an advisory board. At what point should the kids be a part of that? Like, I know that there are some households where they feel like it's just them. They know what's best and they know how to move forward. But do you think that outside of spring break, because that was really the decision, would you rather this or would you rather that? When should they be pulled in to become advisors to how the house is managed? And I'm thinking about this in terms of modeling so that they know how to do it. You know, because people will say your kid doesn't really know how to, like, I took the kids to the bank and they had no idea how to, what am I asking for? Like, what do I give them? What do I, da, da, da. And it all happens with modeling and showing them and walking them through it. So if we apply the same thing to managing relationships and families, especially the other night, we were talking to one of the teens about being in a relationship and not understanding how to enter into a relationship without drama when it comes to friends and exes and all that other stuff, like pulling them into things that they should learn. And we kind of want to guide them instead of them learning
through experience.
Yeah, like how we did when we said we went into a marriage and we didn't even know what we were doing. You know what I'm saying? We had an idea and it became something completely different after years. And that was because we had to figure it out, or we figure it out by watching our friends. And so should they, and when should they?
I think, I guess it just really depends on the relationship between the people who are actually supervising the kids. If they're mature enough, you can introduce certain parts, but being that there's no curriculum, you know, it's all trial and error. You made some valid points sometime this past week where when are they supposed to learn these things? You know, it's not like we're having classes and we're just saying, hey, do as I say. You know, because we know better. But I don't know. I guess when they start asking, as soon as they start asking questions. And when I say that, I mean, like, we have to give them answers. We can't be like, you're too young for that, because they got it from somewhere. And it's best for us to give them the information before they get the information from a poor source.
Yeah. And that's true. When you say you too young for that, well, they already got it. So it's already there. So you got to address it. Yeah. And I kind of feel like, so, you know, when Dallas started taking personal finance, he started asking all the questions about income and retirement and savings and stuff. When do you let them in on something like that? Like that, him asking the questions started to make me feel like he's going to go out into the world. And all of this was behind closed doors. So when did they get to know about that stuff?
I think like as soon as they start asking, I think that, you know, people say you can't give that much, but kids start shooting guns at 5 and 6. Why the heck we can't give them information on how we're managing now so that they have a better idea versus experience?
Yeah.
And experience causes the most mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you hope that they learn the message so that they can reduce the mistakes.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say. I mean, as soon as they start asking about it, we should either talk about it or we should let them know, hey, we're going to come back with you to give you something so that you don't seek that from some unqualified people.
Because there's so many unqualified people just floating around with opinions and ideas.
Yeah, and nothing wrong with opinions, but you want an opinion that has the most experience and best information to make the best decision. Mm-hmm. So I think that these past few weeks showed us that we have to come up with different ways to introduce information because they are at the age where this is regular amongst their age group.
Mm-hmm. Well, even and I think for us, because we were, you hear people talk about Gen X and millennials and all the other stuff. People keep having to remind me where we are. But what I realized was a common joke about our generation is that we are feral. Like we had to learn everything by experience. Like we were out in the streets having a good time as young kids, like riding bikes until dark and nobody knew what we were doing all day, managing a whole bunch of, like my best friend, she always says, we were out being baby adults in high school. We were managing relationships and supporting one another when the relationships were bad. And it was like, now I look at it and I was like, why were we flying through like that? But we learned so much by trial and error, and not to take away from the parenting that our parents did provide. But even I just think about how we were just out loose, just having us a good time. And these kids are not like that. So that trial and error learning bit by bit in age appropriate, or maybe not so much age appropriate situations leading up to 16, 17, they in Dallas are like, the decisions they've had to make are nothing compared to what we've had to do.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to have them involved in making decisions and having real conversations about what if this happens or what if that happens, because they may, like when they come into the situation, it may be at 17, 18, 19, and we might not be there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's scary for me to think that they might be going through something and they experience it, and their first line of defense are dummies that know the same thing that they know. But I think it also wraps back around to how much do they trust us? Trust us to confide in us, but also trust us that when we're telling them something, your kids know that you don't want them to be hurt. But how much do you trust me that what I'm saying to you? As a part of this advisory, we're going to take your ideas into account and your feelings and your thoughts and opinions. But when the final decision comes together, how much do you trust us to follow through on your end? I don't know. I feel like our kids trust us. But there are times where they be looking at us like, I'm going to do something else. So, or, I don't know. I guess I'm just trying to figure out how to minimize them experiencing what we did.
Well, I think we've done that. I think the question you asked as far as when do we introduce them, like I think this is the trial and error part, because we don't have any information unless somebody tags us and lets us know, hey, you should consider this. But overall, I think that we're preparing them for less mistakes than us. And I'll say, even though we started living lives of an adult a lot sooner than we should have, I think that they'll be more mature when they enter those parts of their life.
Oh, yeah.
Just think about how immature we were when we were acting like we were mature enough to get in relationships and do everything that you do in relationships. So,
yeah,
to me, I feel like we've at least slowed down the process of immaturity, finding things that require maturity. And yeah, I think we've done it the most appropriate way. And if we didn't do it the most appropriate way, we at least know that we tried to do it as far as different from the way we grew up as possible.
Hey, yeah. When we were younger, sheltered used to be a bad thing. But for me, I'm like, shoot.
Well, I feel like they have the internet. They can see, and we don't block anything.
True too. Yeah.
They have the freedom to watch whatever. So I feel like the way that we've approached the relationship, like open, revolving door, let's talk about it. I think it made them a lot easier for them to not get caught up on the web, because that's way scarier than being out here in these streets.
It is.
Because you can get comfortable with somebody you've never met over a few conversations.
Golly.
And you'll meet them somewhere.
Yeah. Before it was, what was it? Instant Messenger, and you would hear those stories or whatever. Now that stuff is, look, they can lock into your location, all kind, and even to think about how things change up using AI and stuff like that, how much easier it is for people to manipulate and trick kids into like really dangerous situations.
Yeah.
And then that's the other thing is like, when we grew up, it was like stranger danger, Chester molester, right? And all your friends will run away because they're like, oh, it's crazy. Now it's like your kids are like, oh, it's like when they were walking in a parking lot one day, Day and Darius, not long after we had gotten here, and there was this woman who approached them about coming to get a bike in her basement. Day was like, oh, that's really not. Darius was like, come on. And when he got home, he was like, it was a crackhead that was trying to get us. And Day was like, she's not a crackhead.
They don't even know what a crackhead is.
Wait, but even so, I was like, oh, I've seen her before. She's not crackhead. And then when John saw her, he was like, hey.
Like, so it was at that moment, that's when I realized that maybe some things that I say to my wife goes over her head. Because if she did not know somebody who's under substance abuse.
I didn't. I felt like, okay, after they said it, then I was like, oh, man, that was what that was. But when I was watching her, I just thought she was just a really eccentric woman, just doing her thing.
I know. She could be eccentric. It was, the discoloration in her lips. She's really skinny. Her clothes look kind of worn down.
Yeah, that went over my head.
She didn't look like she should be near any dumpster.
No. Darius came to the rescue in that moment. He was like, let's go.
Yeah.
But, and that's another thing of having kids that have had different experiences, because his perspective is very different from theirs. And in those moments, he's like really protective of them, and I appreciate that, because him hanging with our kids is like John hanging with me. I'm like, oh, the nigga really so nice.
But all crack, like people under this substance abuse aren't crazy or anything, but
right,
that's a bad stereotype. But that if she is under any substance, something's more likely to happen than if she wasn't.
Well, saying come and get a bike in my basement, kind of checks off that little box.
Those are not the words you want to hear as a parent.
Yeah. That was crazy though. But yes, that is that. Yeah. When I think back sometimes to things, I'm like, oh, I remember. Don't judge. I remember we were in New York one time, me and Lynn, and we're walking around, and I was like, I really have to use the bathroom. So we go into a grocery store. We went into a couple places, they wouldn't let me. And so we go into a grocery store, and I asked the cashier, she was like, we don't have no bathroom. And then this other guy who was delivering stuff, he was like, oh, it's a bathroom downstairs. Come this way. And so I start following him. And then he's going down the stairs, and he was like, it's down here. And Lynn said, get your behind over here. And we started leaving. I had to go so bad. And she was like, Kanika, somebody's going to kill you. We are in New York. And so I was like, oh, yeah. And so it was my first trip out of Michigan, I think, definitely without my parents or anybody. So I was like, yeah, eventually we found a bathroom. But I think back to that sometimes, how I was looking down the staircase and that man was standing there. He was like, come on. And I was looking. She was like, girl. So, you know, I guess I found somebody who could help me just
navigate
through
possible troubles.
I didn't make any issues. I didn't make mistakes like that after that. That was out of desperation. But
I can understand. I was like, you tripping, but yeah, if you need to use the restroom, you're not thinking about anything other than using the restroom.
Listen, this lady literally told you she works here, and she said there's no bathroom.
I know, that's all I kept thinking. Like, somebody else told you that don't work there. Come follow me.
Yeah, come follow me. And I was like 19, and I was like, oh yeah, got him.
Yes.
Yeah, they would have had me.
So we definitely have kids that are gullible like that. So we need to discuss these things when they're away from us, that, hey, you cannot trust anybody.
I know.
You shouldn't trust anybody unless it's out of desperation.
Yeah. Well, desperation, that's even worse.
No, I'm saying if it's out of desperation, that means you're not thinking regular. So, you know, that's what happened to you. Yeah. So, you know, I guess overall, my thoughts on introducing topics to our kids is if we believe that they should know it because they're coming to it, or we just wait for them to bring it up and have that conversation as soon as we hear it, though, because again, if they've heard it, it needs to be discussed, because they didn't ask that question for nothing.
I know. We'll be like, tuck that back and bring it back to me at 23.
Right, yeah. Like my mama did, wait till you're 40.
Oh my God, and meant it. Yeah, okay.
No doubt. But anybody want to give a shout out before we get out of here?
I want to give a shout out to Lynn, who kept me from going down in that basement.
Yeah. A girl found slain, and Kanika's her name.
Oh, man.
I hope you didn't have a baby.
Oh, man, that would have been horrible.
Yeah.
However, it would nice in that line. But I wouldn't want to be slain. So thank you.
For sure. Y'all make today better than yesterday. Don't worry about anything you can control. GATA, get after that action, or that action will get after you. Be great on purpose. Boom.